Hey there, it's Olivia-Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I thought I would just do a chill, unplanned kind of video where we can discuss some book to film adaptations. Now, I don't often watch a lot of things, but with the pandemic I've definitely been watching more and faster than I usually have done, and I've watched some book to film adaptations that I would love to discuss with you guys. Some of them I've read the book for and will be making some comparisons, but some of them I've decided to watch them before reading the book, and I'm going to explain why and whether or not I want to read the book now that I've finished watching them. We've got a range of genres: science fiction, horror. We're going to talk about anime at the end there. It's going to be a fun time, so let's get right down to the films and TV series. So the first one I want to talk about is The Martian, and this is based on a book by Andy Weir. Now, I read this book last year and I thought it was incredibly suspenseful. I loved it and I raced through it in a single day. That was how good that book was. So I was very much anticipating when I got to watch the film on my birthday, because I'd waited after the film got out of the cinema after all these years to be able to watch it after reading the book. I was adamant that I wanted to read that book first, and I did. Really enjoyed the film, but I actually found the book to be better. And I've got a theory about that, because in this book it follows a man who gets stranded on Mars and he's desperately trying to find a way home, but before he will run out of provisions and starve, and it's all about him trying to do that and if he gets any help with doing that or not. And a lot of the suspense and the driving factor of this story is whether or not he is going to survive and he is going to be able to get home at the end of this book. So I feel like the first media that you consume this story in is always the best one for you, because it's the one that has the most suspense. It's the one where you don't know how it's going to end. Kind of like with a thriller, once you know the plot twist, it's just not as intriguing in the second media. It's nice to see how things are done, but it does not hit the same way. So I feel like if you've read the book first, you might be able to love the book more than the film, but if you've watched the film first, you might find that the book doesn't quite compare. Another thing that I think factors into which one you prefer definitely has to be science. The science in the science fiction. If you don't like a lot of heavy science or scientific jargon in your science fiction books, you are going to struggle a little bit with The Martian, because it definitely goes in depth and it definitely gives you details, but I love it. The more science that's injected into my science fiction, for me, the better. I love trying to figure all of that jargon out, see what it means, see how it all adds up and piece it all together in my mind. So I definitely think that is something that works for some people but doesn't work for others. And if you don't like that, the film has significantly less of that. It does give you enough science to know what's happening, but it simplifies it kind of. It just brushes over it a bit. You don't have to pay as close attention to understand what is going on. So I think if you don't like lots of science in your science fiction, you might be able to enjoy the film more as well. But that said, each of them has their own merits, is very good for its own reasons. As I've mentioned, I love the book. I think the main character is so funny. I think it does a good job of telling the story. It's just fast paced. It's go from beginning until end, and it was absolutely perfect. I thought it might be a bit of a struggle with one main character who's all alone on a planet, but no, the book never got boring for me, and it didn't have time to, because I just had to finish it that day. And with the film, I would say that it was also really good. The casting choice was perfect and the acting was done incredibly well. It definitely managed to carry some of that suspense, and while it does leave some scenes out, I completely understand, because without those scenes it was still a very long movie. It was over 2 hours, so it definitely covered a lot with its time span, and of course it couldn't cover everything from the book, but what it did pick and choose, it picked and chose very well in my opinion, and I recommend both the film and the book for this one. So moving on, we are now going to be talking about The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. That is the book. It's a classic horror kind of story which is heavy on the atmosphere, and it's about this house which this person believes is haunted. He researches the supernatural, so he decides he wants to go to this house and spend time there and investigate, and he invites certain people to come and join him, these 3 guests, and all 4 of them go to this house to see what is up. And then the synopsis of the TV series is completely different, and we'll get to that in a bit. But first, let's talk about the book. I loved The Haunting of Hill House. I thought it was a fantastic book. It's definitely one that's heavy on the atmosphere, heavy on the creepy vibes, but I was also surprised by how much banter these characters had and how much fun times they had in the middle of this haunted house story. It does a very good job of bringing these friends together in a way that just worked for me, and seeing their interactions and how the story escalated. I definitely think it's about characters being haunted by more than just what's in this haunted house, but also by the past and the choices that they've made, and the layering of that alongside the house was done very well. The house is kind of sentient, it kind of has a life of its own, is a character of its own, and that was very nice to see in the story. While I could definitely see where the ending was going, it gave it a very well-rounded feel, and it was just fantastic. The brilliant way to end the book, and I really loved it. So I was definitely shaken up when I started the TV series and realized that all of the characters in the book who are friends, who didn't know each other and who were separate from each other, are family and are siblings. And it's very creepy because there are certain relationships that form in the book that definitely can't form when you're family. So it's very jarring when you jump from the book to the TV series, so be prepared for there to be a lot of differences. It's also very much a modernized take. In the first episode there are lots of phone calls being made, and of course there's no phone calls in the book. The phone calls in the first episode really put me off watching the TV series. I felt like the first episode of the TV series was very disjointed, didn't connect up very well, and yet the TV series, while I would say it's less an adaptation and more a retelling of The Haunting of Hill House, has become one of my favourite TV series ever, and I absolutely loved it. I think it was creepy and scary, and it had that effect that it needed to have. It brought the horror from the book through very well into the TV series. It also did one of my favourite things, which is to play with the timeline and the way that it flashed back into the past and worked with the present day of what you see meshed so well. I don't want to tell you anything else about how it works with time, but it was absolutely fantastically done, and the way that it took the first episode and really changed my perspective on that episode as the series goes on, perfect. Brilliant writing, brilliant construction, and then the acting was just absolutely phenomenal. The cast that they chose did such a good job. Each and every single character did such a good job of playing their role and playing it well. I liked how they brought more character to each and individual character. You get time to focus in on each and every single one and understand what makes them tick, understand what makes them the way that they are. It's a bit more simplified in terms of character in the book because it's more so focusing on the haunting vibes and what those can mean, whereas here it's really looking at character. It shifts the story to a more character focused look at things in the TV series, and I think it worked very well. We've got a very complex family dynamic that is established in the TV series and examined, and I think the complex family dynamic was brilliant. I love to see a dysfunctional family that has a lot to work through, and one of the main themes in, I would say, the book and the TV series is grief, and if you've been on this channel for a while you know that grief is definitely one of my buzzwords, and the way that that TV series handled grief was absolutely fantastic. It really went into the deep layers, it brought grief in different situations to the table, and it was phenomenal. But I would also say that the grief in the book was done very well. It's much more discreet. The grief kind of sneaks up on you, and that kind of theme is just woven in very slowly, but I also think it did it very well in the book, and I think that's probably why I loved both of them equally. I can hold one in this hand and the other in this hand and hold them to my heart and say those are two things, two medias that I really loved, and it's one of those few times where the adaptation is so different from the book, and yet both of them are things that I love, and I couldn't say which one I prefer because I really enjoyed both of them. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is Bridgerton, which is a historical fiction romance TV series and book series, and I have to say I haven't read the books, and I was never ever planning to. I have read one book by Julia Quinn, which was Mr. Cavendish, I presume, and I read that many years ago. I think I was in my first year of secondary school. Do not ask me why I was reading that book in my first year of secondary school, but I decided that I would try the TV series because it was so popular, and I was looking for a period piece to watch, and I did enjoy this a lot at the beginning, and then towards the end it kind of petered out for me. I was watching it because I wanted to know if I was going to pick up the books or not, and I thought maybe if I watch it and enjoy it, I'll feel motivated to pick up the books, but unfortunately that didn't happen. I watched it and I feel content. I feel like I would prefer it in the media of a TV series than I would ever prefer it as a book, and I just don't need to read the books anymore, and I can just keep following the TV series and be perfectly happy that way. In this TV series we follow this couple who both have very different aims. One of them doesn't want to get married whatsoever and doesn't want to be in a relationship, and the other one really wants to have a love marriage, and she's struggling to find suitors. So they kind of have a fake dating situation so that they can each help each other and each benefit from their fake dating relationship, and I thought it was really nice. In the beginning I was surprised that it went into these tropes that I really enjoy seeing in romance, like fake dating and some other tropes that happen in the background there with other people and their relationships and them sorting out what they want and don't want in life. So I thought that was entertaining. I'm just so not used to seeing such modern tropes in period pieces, I feel like, unless it's in a book. I rarely see that in television, so it was nice to see it in television. And I also really liked our characters. I thought they were amicable, they were nice. My favourite character, I forget her name, but she was Phoebe's friend. I really liked her character and what she stood for. Lots of characters make mistakes, there's lots of miscommunication at times, but it was all very interesting. It was all captivating me. There were some storylines I cared about less than others, but I didn't particularly mind because we've got such a big range here. I thought the music was done very well. It's got modern songs that are played by an orchestra and it just sounds really good. I kind of like orchestral music, so it's nice when I get to enjoy that in a TV series. There's plenty of balls and such, so there's beautiful dresses, there's beautiful makeup and hairstyles for you to admire as well, and it was all going so well up until towards the end, because I felt like one of the mysteries that is going down in this series, which has to do with an anonymous writer, I felt like that was quite predictable and easily predicted who was going to be the person in that case, and as well as that you kind of know where the romantic storyline is going to end up, and it goes pretty quickly when it gets to the end, and I thought you really were accumulating things here, you really were bringing it together slowly, and then bam, it just happened all so easily and so quickly, and I feel like it was a bit predictable. I mean, romance is always predictable, but it was just so stereotypically predictable that I wasn't very happy with how it ended. And there were also some very stereotypical shots, like romantic climactic shots that were done towards the end. Don't want to give anything away, but I was like, oh, this again, we've seen this so many times, and yet here we are when this TV series was feeling quite unique to me. But I had an enjoyable time at the beginning half, and I would definitely watch season 2 when it comes out. The third one I want to talk about with you is Anne with an E, from Anne with Green Gables, and I have briefly mentioned it on my channel before, but I loved Anne of Green Gables. I have not read the books, but I have watched previous adaptations of the books, so I felt like I know the storyline familiarly enough from those adaptations that followed it more closely to know what is and isn't accurate. And what I really liked about Anne with an E, which, well, I should tell you what it's about first. It's about Anne, who's an orphan girl, and she gets adopted by the Cuthberts, this family, but when she arrives there, it turns out they actually wanted to adopt a boy, and she was not what they were expecting. Anne is just such a delightful character. I believe it's going to be that way when I read the book, which I will do at some point this year. My mid-year freakout tag says I need to do it, so I shall do it. And she was just such a delightful character. She's got such a creative imagination, she's got such a bursting personality, and there are two favourite things about this adaptation, this TV series. The first one is how much it changes the messages to be more modernized, and I like that. We get to see indigenous storylines, we get to see black storylines, we get to see LGBT plus storylines, so it does touch on all of these things, feminism, in ways that still feel authentic to what the book could have been like if it was written today for children, and yet still fits into the period piece that it is. And I thought that was really effectively done, the way it kind of weaves it in there, but it doesn't change Anne's character too much. I did think that in the second season, because it was trying to bring across those storylines so much, it did deviate from having the main focus be on Anne and her own endeavours, and I think that's why season 2 weakened for me, because this is Anne with an E. We do want to focus on Anne's character above all else. You can definitely give me secondary storylines, you can definitely give me secondary storylines that connect to Anne, but make sure Anne is the main focus, and they kind of lost that focus in the second season. But they brought it right back for the third season, and it was definitely there for the first season, and I really liked seeing that. And then the second thing I really loved about this TV series was the character development. I was literally an emotional mess in those last few episodes because I was reflecting and thinking about how much Anne has come from season 1, episode 1. She makes mistakes, she goes through a lot of things, but she does really become, you know, this brilliant young lady by the end of it all. And I do think the Cuthberts as well also grew as people, and all of her friends grew as people. Literally every single person in that town grew as a person, and I was here for that character development and the way that it went. It made me so happy. And while things kind of wrapped up a bit fast there in that final episode in terms of some of the other maybe romantic storylines, I do think it was necessary for the fact that the TV series was cancelled, and they might have wanted to give us some endings. Because of the TV series being cancelled, there was a storyline that did not get an ending, which is unfortunate, but that is life when it comes to TV series being cancelled when they really shouldn't have been. Last one I want to talk about here today is Tokyo Ghoul, which is an anime that, wow, it stole my heart. I had a lot of fun while I was watching this anime because I was definitely talking to Dom from Dom Piers here about it. She is reading the manga and I was watching the TV series, so it was a nice way to discuss and chat with her about what we were watching. And Tokyo Ghoul is an anime that exists in this world where ghouls exist and ghouls eat humans, and there's this whole organization called the CCG that fight against the ghouls so that there'll be fewer ghouls and more people will be murdered for ghouls' food. And we follow this particular character who ends up in this very weird situation where he can relate to both the ghouls and he can also relate to the humans. And it was really good. I would say it's definitely a bit actiony, but it's got such a huge found family feel at the focus of the anime, and it's all about this found family and what they're trying to do to live in this middle ground, and it is just so heartwarming. My favourite character was Yomo and Hide. I loved both of them and I think they are fantastic. Hide is just the sweetest person ever. I love a loyal best friend, and he is that and more. And I also really loved Yomo because, again, he was just like an older brother to a certain character, and he was incredibly loyal to protecting all of his friends. The found family element was so cute, but of course there's lots of action, there's lots of battles, there's lots of dying, and what this anime really made me do was love both sides of the equation, kind of like Saga, where all of the characters have their own motivations and their own reasons for doing things, and you can understand all of those motivations and you can understand all of their reasons, but it is a battle and people are gonna die. And then you don't want anyone to die because you just love them all, and it's utter emotional turmoil for you. I will say that the anime does have like a sequel anime, which are seasons 3 and 4, and seasons 3 and 4 do such a big jump that it's jarring and it was very hard to get into. I almost DNF'd the anime there, but I continued on and then I ended up still loving it. Definitely not as much as the first 2 seasons, but I still loved it in a very different way. A big theme that the anime deals with is identity. There's several layers to our main character's identity as he goes through the storyline and the plot, and I love seeing that and how he was balancing all of these elements of himself and all of these parts of himself while trying to push forward with his own agendas. And I like how sometimes we meet characters in one light and it turns out that they're completely different, or they have lots more going on so that we can understand them better. I will say that the anime does a very bad job of including information that's really necessary. Sometimes storylines just get cut off and it never goes back to them again, and it never explains things. Sometimes we're definitely lacking in explanations. When I was watching the anime myself, I just accepted everything as it came and I was absolutely fine. But talking to Dom, who reads the manga, she mentioned all of these scenes that are not featured in the anime, and it's just like, wow, if I'd known that information, this all would have made sense. I'm really looking forward to when I will get the chance to read the manga for myself and fill in all of those gaps. My battery is flashing at me, so I need to hurry up. But I just wanted to say one last thing, which is that, or what was it? Also, the anime kind of erases a lot of the LGBT plus representation that is in the manga, so that was a bit sad to discover because I didn't realize I was missing it until I was getting confused with some pronouns. I was like, why are the pronouns switching so much? Because it wasn't explained or included in the anime when it could have been. So I've got to go now, but please let me know, have you watched any of these adaptations? Should I be reading the book for some of these adaptations? Or what was your favourite book to film adaptation or book to TV series adaptation that you've seen recently? Let me know in the comment section down below. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget, hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!